My name is Louis Bedigan, and I'm a freelance journalist, copywriter, and everything in between. I like to say the everything in between part because it covers all of those areas that aren't covered by the traditional journalist and copywriter buckets. I've been writing for more than half of my life. I was initially inspired to start writing creatively at age 14 after watching the TV show Friends. And when I learned that being a tech journalist would allow me to travel to cool places and play video games ahead of release, I knew this was the career for me. My passion for technology and entertainment helped me in school. It made me a better reader, writer, and speller. And that passion evolved into a passion for storytelling that guides who I am and everything I do.
Hello, Louis.
Hi, how are you doing? Good to be
Good.
here.
And we also have Mindy Hull, who is the founder and CEO of Mercury Global Partners. Hey, Mindy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey. And I just want to say to everybody out there who's listening, first of all, thank you for listening. We appreciate every follow, every share, every comment. And and one of the things I love about Massive Talk, because I'm going to tell you, because these two guys on the podcast are also massive talkers, just FYI, massive talkers. we were we were in the digital green room, and I have never heard so much comment talking. Yes, no, we got to talk about that. No, my God. And so you guys are in for a really great show today. That Louis has been a tech journalist for a long time, and Mindy has run this company, Mercury Global Partners, for what, almost 2 decades now. Is that right?
17 years.
Yeah, 17 years. And so what we have today on the call is a very experienced marketing PR person who really knows how to manage her clients and get them coverage and set great expectations. And then we have, on the other side, we have a tech journalist, Louis, who also, by the way, is the master of all things words, putting them in a line, whipping them into shape. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what the HE double hockey stick is happening out there in the world of public relations, because I still think it's a dirty word right now. And 2, some of the things that we're hearing in pitches. And 3, the things that bug the crap out of you guys in terms of not knowing who you're pitching, calling a journalist. Like, what? Who calls a journalist anymore? Do you guys, have you noticed this? Is this a thing?
Well, Louis, do you want to take this one? I'll comment later. I'll follow you.
Sure. Thankfully, when you're freelancing, that is one thing I should point out too, is when you're freelancing, thankfully, it's not as easy to get my numbers. So only the people that I want to have it tend to have it. I don't really get hounded as a freelancer. But when I worked full-time for Benzinga, oh my gosh, you would get these emails at somewhere between 7 and 9 a.m. I was just getting into the office, and I wouldn't even see them yet. I wouldn't even know they existed. And then I would get a phone call and somebody's like, hey, did you see my email? Hey, did you see my pitch? What do you think about it? I was like, what are you talking about? I haven't even gotten the chance to see it yet. It was always so strange. And it was never anything in my coverage area. So they never got the coverage they were looking for. They were just willy-nilly throwing it, darts at a dartboard, trying to hit the bullseye with whatever journalist they could get their hands on. And if they had actually taken the time, they would have found out that I wasn't in their coverage area. They should just move on, and they would have saved us both some time.
And a phone call.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you that I was talking to a woman in the UK, and she was saying, do PR people, I don't like to work with US PR people because they don't call journalists. I'm like, what? She says, yeah, I only want to work with people who call journalists. I'm like, well, I don't know who those people are, but if you call me, your number's getting blocked, and I'm probably going to tweet about it.
Yeah, or what century you're in, or decade.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, maybe back in the day, but most of the people back in the day, well, Louis was like younger and watching Friends and decided he wanted to write.
I think it was even before that. I think it was fax machine days.
Yes,
Let's go back to the Wayback Machine.
And you would type a press release, and then you would go to the bleeping fax machine, and then you beep bop boop the stupid number in, and then it goes meh, and it takes the paper and it sends it to that actual fucking journalist. Yes, this will be an explicit episode.
Yep.
And then you just had to hope that in the newsroom, like you said, Louis, that you went into the office to do your work, that then there would be a pile of bleeping faxes that the journalist would go and get, and then go, this news is fascinating. And then they would go write it up. And it would be like the type of thing that you dreaded, because I have worked on both sides of the fence. I started out in public relations for an in-house at the Atlanta Market Center, and we were running back and forth to the fucking faxes all day long. You had to fax a press kit. fax a press kit. But I do think, that being said, is that press kits actually probably meant, I think people were more intentional. You had to type that shit up on a word processor and then go print it out and then stuff it into a press kit, either fax it or, I don't know, oh my God, the horror.
Carrier pigeon.
Mail it. Mail it.
Well, let me tell you, when I was going to, so I went to 5 E3s. That was the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and my first was in 2005. So I went 2005 through 2009. And the first year or 2 or 3, or maybe even all of them, we were getting physical press kits. You'd go to the booths, or ahead of time, they would give you this physical folder. It's crazy to think in 2005 that we were still doing this. And I mean, I didn't have any complaints. It was just the way it was. And I mean, honestly,
because you didn't know any different.
Really. Right. And looking back on some of them, I mean, some of them were kind of cool. I love video games, very passionate about them. So, E3 is no more. I'm saddened about that. So looking back, it's almost like a little collector's item. But yeah, it was really weird. And then all of a sudden, we started getting these thumb drives, or started getting stuff via email. They were slapped together. Yeah. They were usually terrible. And I mean, does anybody really read them? Oh, I need a photo for my story. Okay, I'm going to go and look at the press kit. Otherwise, nobody is paying attention to those press kits.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Mindy makes great digital press kits. Like, I'll tell you, her press kits for her clients are off the hook. I always, like, when you're a journalist and PR people are constantly, not you, Mindy, are constantly sending you, here's my pitch. And oh, by the way, here's the digital press kit, and here are the pictures, and here's the interview times. I'm like, whoa,
all
Nelly.
one email. All one email.
Which you can't get through anyway, because it's just like, wait, is this written for me? And then you see all these links to everything. But usually as a journalist, when you're writing something, you got to form the story in your head. Like,
no, it's a story. You're storytelling. That's what you do.
You're telling.
That's what Lewis does. And that's actually what most PR people are supposed to be, are storytellers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Before we get back to the peanut gallery, I thought I would read out a few statistics about the PR industry from 2024. And I'm only going to read 3 because I think they're the most shocking, is that 72.8% of all PR managers are female. Notice PR managers. What it doesn't say is how many directors or vice presidents are men. And I would imagine that would be probably shifted a little bit. Over 40% of PR experts see the media as unbiased. That's a really good number, and I would probably agree with that. Here's something else. 88% of PR specialists say digital storytelling is the future. But while there are many widely used public relation procedures to choose from, 88% of PR professionals believe that one of the new PR strategies, digital storytelling, is the way to go. And we are going to talk about that a little bit more later on the podcast. And we touched on it earlier, why storytelling was a lost art and why PR people need to do it. Other strategies that PR people think are going to shape the industry outside of digital storytelling is social listening, social purpose, big data, behavioral research, branded content, live streaming, artificial intelligence at the bottom of the list next to virtual reality, fake news, and in a funny ha-ha moment, Donald Trump. PR people are not storytellers. It feels like it's a factory.
No, I think a big part of it is managing expectations. I mean, you have to pitch the right story to the right journalist. And what's broken to a large extent, as you mentioned, factory and assembly line, is that's what it feels like. I mean, when I was a marketing SVP, I used to have to hire and fire PR firms, and my biggest pet peeve about them was, like, I felt like you got the dog and pony show. Everybody marched into the office in the conference room when they were pitching you, and then as soon as you signed on the dotted line of the contract, they disappeared, and you were left with, like, junior people, and you're like, who are you? Where'd you come from? And they're lovely, but the biggest problem, it was like puppies gone wild, and they don't know what they're doing, and so they're, like, making a bigger mess, and then you have to go back and fix the mess, and most of the time they didn't know how to write, and they didn't get the story, and they didn't have the relationships, and they would do things like call a journalist or send a bad pitch, and you're like, no. So it was more, you spent more time cleaning up the mess than you did actually. I was like, why did I hire you? I'm hiring you so I can wait, I'm paying you and I'm cleaning up your mess. How does this work? Loop back to what you said about managing expectations and getting clients on side. If companies come to us before we even engage with them, I'd say, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? We had a client last year and they were lovely. They were Danish. You have this funding announcement and this is what we want. And I was like, how much time do you have? And they were like, what? And I was like, I'm being honest. I was like, this is what the news cycle is right now. You've got this. I mean, it was September. I was like, you are literally in the thick of it with like conferences and Apple announcements.
I love that you brought that up though, like that part of like educating them, because I do think that PR gone wild. I love that. I have this, I wish I had a sound for that. But I do think that is a churn and burn situation. And when you're talking about, like how much time do you have? Let me tell you about the news cycle. I think that's a really important thing to do, is to educate them, because there is a news cycle. There is a news cycle in terms of today, people have attention span of a gnat. I actually think a gnat has a more of attention span than people does today. And so all these CEOs who want coverage, they're only getting their news from like news alerts. Nobody's actually, and I use that physical form, Lewis, because if you were at E3, you'll know like everything was like a trade show pub,
right?
And you wanted to get in the public in that physical magazine,
right,
that they have at the show. And then they would say, oh, but I really want to be in print. I'm like, okay, but you do realize that this is given at a show for 3 days and will end up in the garbage in a little bit. Like it has no legs. It goes nowhere.
Pieces. They're vanity pieces.
It's vanity. I love that, vanity pieces. And I think that is what these companies want. I'm not all
they
of
do.
Them. Vanity. I don't
think all of them do. Well, I'll give you. So this company, I want to give a shout out to the Danish company. I'm not going to name them, but so they listened. They're like, okay, and I was like, you want an exclusive? This is how much time it's going to take, because your funding is not a gajillion dollars. Your funding is a smaller Series A by U.S. standards, and would be considered a seed in most markets. The story is really about what you're doing, which is actually really cool. And they're like, okay, we're going to trust you to tell us. I said, it's going to take some time, but boom-de-boom. It took 6 weeks. We got the right reporter is the whole premise of it is, as I said, if this is what you want and you want an exclusive, gal came back, she's like, I love this story and I want to cover it, but I'm in the weeds for like 2 weeks. And I was like, what about 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now? She's like, done. And we did it. They got coverage. They were thrilled with the coverage. Their board was thrilled with the coverage. The CEO was happy. Oh, and by the way, they got a podcast also out of it because it appeared on the daily podcast. So they got more out of it, and they were like, "Well, we're so glad we listened to you." And I'm like, "You're like a dream client. Can I have that in writing?"
Right.
That there's a lot of value in that, right? Because you're helping a company be more understanding about what it takes to get, in the news, so to speak. And what is it that is absolutely not working that could be fixed if people would only listen?
They need to take the time, PR people do, and the corporate culture is so bad because it's what you were saying about the factory. It is an assembly line. They just come in, all these PR people. It makes it look like the industry is devoid of talent, when in reality there's so much talent, and there are way more PR firms than we probably need, and yet they're all fighting. They're all fighting for. What is it exactly when you're acting like we must get out 1,000 pitches to 1,000 journalists, and you're just writing the same spiel over and over again, and you're not customizing it, and you're not tailoring it, and you're not targeting anyone? I mean, what is the point? Like you were laughing about one of the pitches that it says hi, and it doesn't even say your name, and I get that too, and that is absolutely terrible. It's like it is so easy to plug in a name into these these emails. Yes, hi. I mean, it's like what?
Or hi name is my favorite one.
Yeah, and now I will say there are people. I once worked with someone who was not good with names, and one time called a client the wrong name. I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but I can only imagine the bosses getting super furious at this person who was also a boss.
There were some statistics that came out from Meltwater. The global PR market is expected to grow to more than $133 billion by 2027.
A lot of garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, 100%.
Number 2, demand for PR specialists is predicted to grow by about 6% by 2032.
Why? We don't need more of them. We need the ones that we have to be given the time and freedom to be creative, to focus. When they don't research the client. So I talked about not researching the journalist. Well, there are times when they don't research the client, or the publications that client wants to be in. And they would say, sure, we can do it, assuming that what they did for company A in a totally different industry is going to work for company B. They go in and they find out they absolutely cannot win company B, to which the client is like, oh, okay, well, we got to go. And they're like, yeah, we saw that coming. And it's like, what? You just wasted everybody's time. You built up
And
all this hype
money.
about security. Yeah, and secured, a temporary
Bravo.
client. It was just a temporary client.
Well,
So what was the point?
Well, and they also damage the reputation of the company. They damage
Yeah.
the firm's reputation. So I want to touch on, you said something about they're over promising and under deliver. So
Oh
Without
yeah,
a doubt,
I-
all the
I
that was
time.
beautiful.
I hear
so
this
well
story.
said.
I hear this story so many times from companies that come to me like, you would not believe what I've just been through. I'm like, try me. And it's literally, I hear this same story all the time. They're like, they promised us that they could, deliver the sun, moon, stars, and the firstborn child, under a new moon. I don't know, but it's crazy. And the weird thing is that I hear it so often that it's like, I'm like, it's not that uncommon. And I feel really bad for companies when they tell me that. I said, I'm just going to tell you something. I'm like very direct, and I will not tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you that I will bust my butt, and so will my team, we will under promise you and do our damnedest to over deliver.
That's fantastic.
And that's why we have clients that come back. But a big part of the problem is these PR firms that are pitching journalists, and they don't even know who they're supposed to be pitching. They're pitching the wrong journalists. They don't even know the backstory of the companies. They've done no foundational work. They don't even have a narrative or a story to tell. And I think that's also a big part of the problem. I tell clients to come with us, I'm like, the first thing we're going to do is our foundational materials and create really strong narrative and key messaging that we will use for PR. And they're like, whoa.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I love
you didn't
that
have that
foundational.
before?
I love that foundational thing, because I think that you see a lot of big agencies. Oh yeah, we did that. We have content. Like, no, you don't, because you don't do anything foundational. Because the point, like you just said, Lewis and Mindy, very well said, is that they just jump in there so quickly. These senior guys who maybe come in and lock in these accounts, or maybe a company's got a couple billion from some dumb idiot in Silicon Valley, and he's like, you need to get PR. And they hire a big agency. They send the senior guys in, and they sell everything, and then they're left with the little babies and diapers, right?
The puppies.
Yeah.
The puppies.
All the
and
time.
There's no foundational work done, because if there was foundational work done, they would begin to create storylines and understand to create the amplification for each different way those could go out. And to your point, when you said you got the Danish company what they wanted, 6 weeks is foundational time. Like,
this is a real story. This is a company that I think is very promising. I had a call with them, and I had set up this whole thing. I'm like, here's all this new cool stuff that we can do for you. I thank God I hadn't actually shared my document with them.
oh, yes.
I was
Smart,
going to
smart.
present it, and he's like, we're just not going to continue PR. And I was like, well, get your machine ready, Jennifer. The comment was, he's like, looks me dead in the eye on camera and says, legacy media is dead. We are going to get all our leads. We're going to use social media for all of our leads. This is an enterprise AI company.
And does he even know what legacy media is?
And I said, so what social media channels? And he's like, well, LinkedIn. And I said, and he said, and Twitter. I said, oh, you mean X? Okay. Well, with all due respect, I've been doing this quite some time, and legacy media is not dead. And there's a reason why you were pretty excited about some of the really big media coverage we got you.
He might be a Trump supporter, because he may have heard that like legacy media is dead. Like, it's mass media.
I will say that
mass media is not dead.
Not a U.S. company, but for I have yet to see an enterprise company get all of their leads off of any social media. You have good PR. This company is sitting on a gold mine of data.
I think you're making the right decision when you have those conversations. All you can do is point out, like, okay, but like here, okay, good luck. PR has to change. And people like you, Mindy, with your firm, Mercury Global Partners, is a firm that actually tries to take that foundational approach in the beginning. So the third thing that this survey I think is interesting is that PR professionals think that AI is one of the top 5 skills their companies are going to need to focus on for the next 5 years. Wooga! Like,
okay.
Also, what top 5 skills they need to work on, meaning like get AI to write their press releases, which already suck anyway.
Right.
Come on. You can tell an AI written piece from 19 miles away.
Of course you can. I think, so AI is interesting though from a PR perspective. People ask me, like, do you use AI? I was like, I've used it to I used it to write a pitch, but I didn't use that pitch. I didn't copy and paste. It was awful. I used it as and I would never use it for a press release because it's awful. It's like, and it's going to still look like it was plagiarized because it's pulling all sorts of crap from the internet.
Oh,
right.
So it's bonkers.
It's bonkers. But I will say that for a pitch, I find AI useful for that. To like, at least as a starting point, if I'm like, what do I want to say that's not, it takes a little bit of that lift off, but there's massive human in the loop involved. And and the other thing I would say is like one of the AI tools we use and I really love, and I'll give them a shout out, is Grammarly.
And I don't use Grammarly is amazing,
but I don't use it to write PR pitches or PR. I use it to make sure.
Edit.
Yeah, I use it as an editor. Because it makes all of our writing a lot stronger. And
but in this number 3 part where we talk about PR professionals believe AI skills, other skills that they think are really important are media relations, strategic planning, data and analytics, and multimedia. I certainly hope that they think media relations skills are important.
Yeah. Oh my.
Oh my. Now, the number 4 thing Lewis talked about much earlier, and Mindy also addressed this, but 7 out of 10 PR professionals say they struggle with creating effective content. More than half struggle being able to distribute the content that they create.
Well,
so this comes back to the storytelling and the content we were talking about.
But that's because they're probably I think sometimes people are writing really bad content. We write content, and we also connect with partners who who help us write content as well. We also have former tech journalists.
We know people like that.
Yeah, we do. Wink, wink. And we have former tech journalists that also work with us. And I just think that if you're writing, the content has to be good. So I'm kind of curious. Is like, there's no way to distill like of that amount of people who say they're concerned, how many of them are actually writing good content or have the time to write good content? Because I feel like we write content and we do get it placed. So,
well, I mean, again, you come back to this foundational part because you are more aware, right? Your whole focus is, let's look at the story. Let's look at the concept. Let's create a story about it that Lewis and Jennifer might want to write. And that takes me to number 7, which is more than half of journalists say they don't care what day they're pitched.
It's about the story.
And at the same time, I think that is I think is accurate. At the same time, about 1 in 5 prefer to get pitches on Mondays. Oh, hell no.
That's weird.
Or Saturday or Sunday or 9 and 10 p.m. at night. And then the next morning, like you said, Lewis, like, did you read my pitch? No, I didn't. It actually went into spam. So
I will say we do try to avoid pitching journalists on Fridays because I feel like you're like kind of like, meh, over it. I'm burned out. I'm cruising into the weekend. I'm trying to get all the other stuff off my plate
But for you, Lewis, and for you, Mindy, if you have a relationship with the journalist, Mindy, and Lewis, you have a relationship with a PR firm, you would probably read their pitch first, right? You'd read their email first.
Yeah, I mean, if they were reliable, I knew they were coming to me with good stuff. Honestly, though, it's been a while since I've had anybody that is taking the time to come to me with good stuff. It's usually me going out and finding the good content, and then the PR person, whatever, being like, "Oh wow, this is great, thank you so much." Like I did a story. I'm trying to think which one it was recently, and the PR person wasn't even in the mix. And afterwards, I get a message on LinkedIn, and I'm like, "Oh, what is this about?" And the PR person is like over the moon. They're just like so happy. They're just like, "Wow, thank you for this content. I hope we can do more soon." And it's like,
you can do my job for me again later.
Right. I mean, it's like, okay then. All right. But actually, one thing though I did want to interject is the foundational element. And one of the problems, okay, you've got the assembly line problem, you've got the corporate culture problem, you've got just so many issues, but also the element of so many people don't even know how to begin to, generate a story on how to communicate with their clients. And this was something I tried to do, when I was full-time in an agency. I would have teaching sessions where I would try to guide them, because the common thing for PR people to do is, we got to have this intake call with new executive at new client. And they do this intake call and they ask the same generic questions, and they don't do great follow-ups or follow-ups at all. I had come aboard and I was listening to one time, and I must have listened to this call like 4 times, hoping for some nugget of great content hidden in there, but they were leaving commentary hanging. Somebody would say something and then they would just move on to their next question in their list instead of following up with the million things that I would have asked. Like, I know I have an unfair advantage by being a journalist as well as a copywriter, but I mean, being a journalist and conducting so many interviews, it really helped in everything I do with writing because now I root everything in interviews. So when I get a
Yeah.
new client, I want to have that close relationship. I want to be talking to them and asking follow up after follow up and learning what it is they're really about and the message they want to send. And all I
Yeah.
ever saw was PR people that were either unwilling to do it, that didn't know what questions to ask, that didn't want to take the time to learn, or that they were too afraid of wasting the executive's time. Oh no, heaven forbid we take an hour of their time instead of a half an hour. I mean, it was just, it was such a complete waste. And like my favorite thing though was that call that I mentioned that I listened to 4 times. I remember because I work from home, so I'm in my kitchen walking around in circles listening to this, trying to pull out something. And the thing that really stuck out is this moron. I have to call him a moron because he drove me nuts. He says when they finally tried to dig in and say, hey, no, we would like this from you. We'd like this from you. He was like, you should go look at this blog from so-and-so, who was not a member of the company, by the way. It was completely unrelated. They partner, but he was not an employee. He says, go look at this blog. He's got some ready-made content all for you. And it was like, this is not ready-made content. This is content that he wrote. We are not going to plagiarize his work. And that was all we got out of this guy. And eventually this guy left
that. I get that a lot too. Just go read the blogs and pull from there. I'm like, I'm not pulling anything from something that's already been
have
published.
Thoughts on this actually. Because because I didn't start off in the PR world. I came from the business development and marketing side of things on the media side because I came up through the media. I used to work for the Financial Times, as Jennifer probably remembers. And so I go back to the old newspaper days. But I was on the commercial side of the business, and you always ask questions in business development. And it's sales. And one of the reasons people are like, well, why do you think you're good at PR? I'm like, because I was good at business development. And you know why? Because I asked questions all the time. And the best salespeople that I know, there's somebody that I know who has won sales deals. I'm like, how in the world did you get that? And they're like, I keep asking questions until I find what's making them tick. And what they're going to get passionate about, and
I love that connection.
Pull it out of them, and you have to do that. And like that foundational stuff that I'm talking about, the work that we do. To your point, Lewis, is we have these onboarding calls with clients. I'm like, pre-pandemic, it was like, okay, we're going to go in person. We're going to spend a whole day with you, and I'd have a whole agenda of like all the stuff we were going to ask, and they'd be like, "Whoa, you guys have a lot of questions." And I'm like, "Yeah." So I said, we're basically pretending we're journalists, and we're going to ask you everything under the sun. And
Very smart.
Please give us all of your marketing materials, everything you've done to date. If you've never done PR, that's fine. But give us your investor deck, give us your marketing deck, give us everything, and we'll take it back. We'll take your keywords. We'll distill all of this into key messages that answer all the basic questions that need to be answered to tell your story. A lot of companies, like PR firms, it's like grabbing for clients. It's like whack-a-mole. They take them. They're like, we're so desperate for clients, or we just want to get the money in. And we don't, this kind of touches on something. I think it was Lewis said it, or it might have been you, Jennifer, earlier, is like, you get the clients in and then it's like turn and burn. And then you have them for a few months. And then
that was Lewis.
It's like, they're going to leave. So, no, we got to scramble and do everything we can to keep them. And no, that's not how it works. Actually, you should look at the beginning when somebody comes to you and actually go, is this really a client that if I was a journalist, that I would want to cover?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, bye-bye. I've actually had very difficult conversations. I mean, they were nice and polite, but they might have been a little bit awkward where I was like, you know what? You're not ready for PR. This is not, you're not a company. You're not a fit with us. That doesn't mean you're not a fit with somebody else. And I'm not being cynical. I'm being honest, but I think we needed to be honest with clients.
Absolutely.
And I think then it's part of the onus is on us as PR people to say, no, you're not ready, or no, this is not a company that is PRable. Sorry.
Yeah. Not PRable.
Not sorry.
Like Lewis so aptly summed up a lot of things we were talking about. The assembly line, and I'm adding this ness of the PR world today, the corporate culture that sort of, sickly sort of just get the clients in, and if right before they get ready to go, just like, oh shit, they're going, and then try to get them back to stay. That foundational work, how do you generate a story? Get something off your chest, which we've been doing all during this podcast, about who's doing PR good, who's doing PR well on a big scale.
I find that the big PR agencies usually don't do PR well. unless they're being
Mhm.
paid an exorbitant amount by like big tech and their publicly traded
Yeah.
companies. I feel
And
like
then big tech can
most
pretty much get headlines on their own anyway
Right.
exactly. So basically, the big tech's shelling out money for I don't know, they're setting their money on
for
fire.
nothing.
But how many
Yeah.
bad pitches do you get out
About
of
200.
per day?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of those, how many do you read?
3, 4.
Exactly. That's part of the problem.
I think that's true. I said that to somebody once, and she goes, "You really get 200 a day?" I'm like, "Sometimes 189. Sorry." Yeah. But no, I don't. I can't read them. I put them in a filter and I look at the headline and then I look and see who I know. There's one more guy, give him a shout out. I hope he's listening. Peter Moran. He's with Indicate Media and he will do the same thing. I'll see an email come in and he goes, "Listen, I know you're busy. You don't have to look at it now, but I thought you might like this story." He will bust a move. I'm sorry, Lewis, that you don't have that. You've never had that. Maybe you should work with Mindy.
Absolutely. And two, I want to say to every PR person out there listening, if you've made it this
Yes.
far, and I don't know that many of you will, you said you have, about the attention span, about the length of the
Yeah.
attention span that the people reading your emails have, and it just goes round in circles and round in circles. But anyway, to the point is, I would highly recommend that all PR people get better about not unintentionally burning a bridge through silence and disappointment. And what I mean by
Oh,
that is
Wow.
when I go to conferences, so I have done a lot of work in the automotive industry, particularly auto tech.
Yeah.
But in more recent years, I was working for TU Automotive. Sadly, they have closed, but they used to hold an annual conference in Michigan, and the TU stood for Telematics Update. They were kind of the front runners in that before we had all this connectivity and everything in cars. And so I worked for them, but all I ever did for them was I conducted interviews, and most of them led down the path of, autonomy and the latest connectivity and all of that. So I had very specific needs. Otherwise, there was no point in me talking to someone or conducting an interview because they just weren't going to get any coverage. And I was pretty clear about that to all these PR people. So this one time they gave me this guy, I don't remember what his title was. I think he was in the C-suite. And I interviewed him, and he couldn't answer a single question I asked, even though they knew up front what I was going to be asking. And he turned everything into a sales pitch for his company. And the PR people were really pestering me about publishing it. Funnily enough, I will also add that sometimes when I have a great story, I never hear from the PR people again. And it's like, wow, you got coverage. Hello? Anybody out there? But anyway, this PR firm that clearly was desperate for coverage, and they just kept hounding me. So finally I said, look, this isn't going to work for the publications I work for, but if you bring him back and this time he can actually talk about the subjects that I need to talk about, then I am more than happy to interview him one more time. I never heard back again.
Yeah.
Ever. They just went
What?
dead
Yeah,
silence.
those people get blacklisted for me. I put them in spam, trash, delete, block. Like, there's no way.
It just made
That's
no sense. It's like,
terrible.
why not at least say, I'm sorry, my client isn't going to budge, or I'm so,
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. It takes
everyone-
2 seconds.
Right. Every once in a while, I will have a PR person that is, updating me and explaining the client was difficult, the client was this, and I totally get that. But in this case, it was like, oh, you're not going to give me what I want? Okay, quietly, goodbye.
Let's do a tip list for all the I love that you started that way. For all the PR professionals that are listening out there, first of all, I just want to say, I know we sound really harsh, but we want you to come to the good side, the light side, the force of loving what you do.
Right.
What are some tips that, besides please don't burn a bridge, answer the journalist and don't burn a bridge, some tips that you'd like to leave them before we end this podcast? Top 5 tips for PR people before we leave this call today. Go.
Definitely, it's what I was saying before about making sure you know your clients. Don't be worried about, oh, I can't take the CEO's time. He's too busy. If you get him on the phone, you know what? In my experience, and I've been doing this a long time, people will stay on the phone far longer than they say all the time. Whether it is a client call or whether it is I'm interviewing someone for a story, they will say, oh, I only have 30 minutes. And I'll just keep asking questions, and they never unless they have
answering.
Right, unless they have a hard stop, they will just keep answering. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give them what they need. And by them, I mean your client, the journalist, everyone. If you take the time to really know your client, the results will be so much better. So that is like the number one tip that I could give.
Okay.
I love that. What about you, Mindy?
I have several tips. Do
Go
your
for it. Go.
Do your homework. Find out what the journalist covers. Write your pitch. Vote based on that. Don't send them a spammy pitch that's like generic that covers the land of tech as a whole. If somebody writes about automotive, write them a pitch that's and or something even more specific about automotive. Hone your pitch and write it for them. The other thing I would say is don't hound people unnecessarily. Don't send somebody we talked about somebody called you like the morning they sent the
Right.
pitch, like literally 2 hours later. Don't do that on email either. It's like, you know what, journalists read their emails, and if they're interested in your story, they're going to get back to you. And be on time with journalists. Deliver things by deadline. Give them the things that they need in a very easy way, so it's easier for them to do their job. They have hard jobs. They're fielding 200 plus, some of them way even more emails per day, and writing multiple stories per day. Don't give them a press kit that's like image.176 blah 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 and nobody knows what it is. Give it a description so that it's easy.
Yeah, that's good.
Put it all in a press kit that you can easily click, so that, and give people a choice of different things that they can use in your press kit. Don't put 2 pictures in there. Don't put, one logo in there that can only be used on a certain website that's like for a dark background. Make sure you've just done everything and set the journalist up for success and set yourself up for success.
I love that, because then you'll be able to be on that top 10 list of a journalist. You'll come back. You guys, these are really great tips. Here are the headlines that have come into my email since we've been talking. Ready? Green Real Estate CEO expert and source on CPRG program.
What? That doesn't tell me anything.
Even mean? Yeah.
Now, by the way, I can see the first 5 sentences the way I set it up on my thing. I can see, hi, Jennifer. At least you got that right. With and I haven't even opened it because I'll just delete that one, right? Okay, here's another one. Ready? Taking sustainability seriously with HX.
HX?
What's HX?
Don't know what that is. I might open that because it says sustainability.
That's the only reason you would open that, though. No,
that would be the only reason, right? Now, here's one that's completely OpenAI -- updates to DALL-E and Chat GPT. Hi, Jennifer. Tina here on behalf of, and then it cuts off.
I have not heard any headline yet or subject line.
Yeah, you let me know if there was something you would grab.
What actually it does or why you should care.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this. Here's one. Algaeverse and opportunities.
Okay.
Algae, like
algae? Yeah, so I'm kind of interested because it's so fucking weird.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that just because it's a little bit off.
It's different, Algaeverse. I have written about algae before.
Yeah, and I know that they're doing some really cool things with algae, so I'm kind of like, what does that mean?
But what does that mean? Should we open it?
Let's open it.
Okay, let's see. No name. It's just, fruity nutcakes. It's a picture of 2 Gen X. One girl has pink hair. Another she's holding up a peace sign. They've got white t-shirts on. And it says, Algaeverse in the spotlight. Steward-owned Berlin-based impact startup developing menstruation products from seaweed. That's one sentence. Whoa. Has recently closed a 7-figure investment round with a groundbreaking and self-developed sustainable financing instrument, the Future Profit Partnership Agreement.
It could have been an interesting story, but the way it's presented and written is cringeworthy.
Baltimore port closure is damning for the ag supply chain.
Huh.
Okay.
And she spelled damning, DAMMING. Hardy har.
That's my other tip. Proofread your work.
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh.
Proofread your emails, for crying out loud. Sorry.
And here's one. That's okay. It's good. We love these rants. That's why I wanted you guys to be on the show. I knew you'd both be ranting. Gen Z embraces pets as millennials step back. Exclusive data set.
Okay.
I mean, that might hit up some journalists might. I don't know. Let me give a tip.
This is gonna give a tip. Yeah.
Just about the whole not saying, just hi, find out who the person is. Stop with hey there and hi there. Stop that. Yes. Unless you're my buddy, my best friend, someone I really know, you know what I mean? Like
we've had a drink with,
right?
I have a hangover with. Yeah,
I have colleagues I've known for many years. They might be like, hey there, okay, that's cool. Yeah. Or look who it is. That's totally fine. Do not do that if you don't actually know me. It's okay to reach out to get to know me, but find a better way than saying, hey there.
A word, Lewis, word. Calling out to all PR people out there. If you would like Louis Bettigan and Mindy Hull to review your pitches and help you write one pitch that you could use that would get your clients coverage, we will live write your pitch on a podcast. Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so great having you. I love all the rants. Will you come back and do another one where we live edit somebody's pitch?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Had a blast with you and Liv.
Hello, friends. I hope you enjoyed that segment of Massive Talk and all the massive talking about journalists and public relations and all the things that are happening out there. And a big thanks to Lewis and Mindy for taking an hour and 30 minutes of their time to come on the show and share their thoughts and feelings about things. It's always a great honor for me that people really want to give up their time and come and share their stories on this show. So props to them. On the next episode of Tiny Little Victories, we have a really interesting guest, and she has the same name as me, which obviously can't be a bad thing. But her name is Jennifer, I'm going to pronounce her name right, Henchy. And she is the CEO and founder of Fur Doll Fertility Science. And she has created the introduction, I guess, let's just say she has pioneered the introduction of the first and only sterile FDA cleared, FDA, that's big doings, over-the-counter at-home insemination kit for infertility. Now, there's no giggles here because I know we're all grown-ups, but she has a PhD and she went through her own struggles with becoming pregnant. So she decided just to go out there and like step out from behind all the medical rhetoric and to sort of set her sights on revolutionizing healthcare and creating solutions for men and women who are having troubles conceiving. And so she's going to share her personal experience with us about infertility and really what drove her to create Fair Doll that is transforming infertility treatment. And you guys know I don't use the word transforming very often, but if you think about the number of people who cannot get pregnant and the large volume of costs that go into the process in this infertility world. Imagine what it'd be like if you could do it at home for a fraction of the cost. Like, she's just going to share with us some of the things, the roadblocks that she encountered with the medical community and her solutions to that. And I love that because that's like someone that's out there thinking like, how can I solve this problem? And that's what we should be doing. How can we solve problems? So on that note, I shall sign off for today and thank you all for listening, sharing, rating, and passing this episode on to people because without you, we would not be here. So thank you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks on the next episode of Tiny Little Victories.